All right, good afternoon. It's August 31st, 2012. This is Thomas Keegan with LibertarianProgressive.com, where you'll find interviews of candidates you might not hear from in the mainstream media. Basically, to start out a premise, to start the story out, to set the theme, we are in a time where we've been at war for the longest period in our country's history, over 10 years. We're facing budget deficits where 40 cents out of every dollar is borrowed money, where we paid interest to a private Federal Reserve Bank. Our civil liberties, our Bill of Rights that's guaranteed in our Constitution, the first 10 amendments are on the endangered species list. But there is hope. There always is hope. We're not out of it. Of course, you can hear this interview. We don't necessarily need a whole overhaul, but in some ways. But this country started out on promises and principles that have needed to be fought through all through the civil rights era and everything. Everything's evolved, but nowadays the revolution's electronic one. We can communicate across the world in a nanosecond, and we can send tweets and be very informed, although there's a large population of our populace that still gets most of their information from the quote-unquote mainstream media, where they're only presented with two options for every single situation. And I'm here to prove to you that you have more than two choices, and sometimes lots more, sometimes just whatever it is. But we can't make a fully informed decision unless we know all of our choices. And so right now I have the pleasure to talk to Pat Riley. He's running as a congressional representative in Tennessee, and you're running against Diane Black, Scott Beasley, and that's for District 6, and as a Green Party candidate. And Pat, it's great to talk to you. And how are you doing today, sir? And what got you motivated to run? I guess, do you sense an urgency, or is this something that you want to make a career out of yourself, or what's? And I say that in jest. But what's the? The reason behind you running for Congress, sir?
Yes. Well, thanks for the interview.
Well,
I think Ron Paul is the long and the short of it. Ron Paul got me really fired up. Just him being himself and speaking his message about the Constitution and getting rid of the big government and all the big spending and taxes and all of that. So he drew me in, and I'm a Ron Paul fan.
Yeah.
Is there anything in the Constitution or otherwise that says there has to be a Democratic and Republican Party?
There isn't, but you know what? They act like it because they prevent people from, or they try to prevent people from being on debates. They try to make laws making it more difficult for people getting on the ballots and to compete. And
big time.
Yeah.
And
when they get. Well, I'm sorry. When they just real quick, when they get into the Congress too, when they have subcommittees and committees, it's all based on which party owns the Congress. Imagine if we were all independents or had different parties. Like one party couldn't just control like what bills get introduced and things like that either. That's another thing that they do.
I'd like to see. I'd like to see them do away with these parties. I think they've been partying long enough, and we need to start sobering up and getting real and getting back to work and start helping our neighbors and bring the whole issue of peace and love back on the table.
Yeah, we don't have to. We can quit any time that we want, and believe me, there's not going to be any withdrawal whatsoever. In fact, you're probably going to feel better than you ever have in your entire life, and so. We're doing something out of habit. It's not because we're even addicted to it or enjoy it. This is just out of pure compulsion, just being trained to just pull the lever for an R or a D, and it's time to think outside the box and get a different perspective on being aware of all our choices. And running on Ron Paul's platform, I mean, that kind of makes it easy to go over these issues, I guess. I mean, he definitely is big on civil liberties, he was against the Patriot Act. I mean, he's basically for all the things that are in our Bill of Rights and our Constitution. Being born into a society where you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. I mean, that sounds so beautiful to the ears, and to live like that, to not experience illegal searches and seizures of our property, personal records, persons without an independent judge's approval, to not incriminate oneself, to if you're going to be charged of a crime, to know the charges, evidence, the accuser, as well as being accountable to a jury of our peers, to a right to a fair trial, no cruel and unusual punishment, due process, and etc. I mean, that's like, we've made progress in the last 1,000 years since the Magna Carta, and it's evolved to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and I mean, right now it's endangered. We've passed laws which we didn't even amend the Constitution, like the Patriot Act and the NDAA, which violates those very things that I just mentioned. So now people are born into a place where they could be indefinitely detained, not know their charges against them, the accusers, and no one would even know what happened to them. And they,
if people don't sober up, it could get real ugly. And they need to wake up, everybody, and realize that we're at a critical point in time. And if we keep spending like we have been, and everybody kind of milking off the government, and thinking the government is our Lord and Savior, we're destined to not have a country. I mean, somebody, I think, during your interview said, we might not even have, the libertarian from New Mexico said, we might wake up and not have a country. We'll probably be taken over by the Chinese or someone without them firing a shot, and we'll be Chinese.
Yeah, we'll be taken over by, within, I mean, it's not by any armed forces or anything, but by our economics, probably, yeah. It doesn't have to be that way. It's not like
It doesn't have to be that way.
We don't need an overhaul. I mean, we have the infrastructure there. We have the resources there. We have the foundation already there. So, yeah.
So that makes it even more critical that we're so close, but yet so far. I mean, we could turn things around if people stand up and do the right thing and become educated on really what's going on. But sometimes you got to read between the lines or dig a little deeper than what first appears on Google, because that's generally from the major media, and they're just trying to brainwash you with the status quo.
Yeah,
and kind of.
You want to get a couple opinions on each story. I always do, I mean, I'm not going to, I'll try to find like 3 or 5 different opinions on one thing, at least. Sometimes
Absolutely.
like 20 or more, but it just depends.
And what people that are listening out there can do or watching, is share this information. I mean, I've been trying to share goodness and righteousness and peace and love for 4 years, or my whole life, really, musically, because I'm a singer-songwriter here outside of Nashville.
Yeah, I heard your song on your website, by the way, it was really cool. And so people want to hear that. It's worth listening to. So definitely Patrick, or actually it's just Pat Riley for Congress.com, and right there's your campaign song, which you made yourself, right?
Yeah, I wrote it with a buddy,
cool.
Donnie Bartholomew. And, I encourage everybody to check that out, Pat Riley for Congress.com, and there you will hear me playing that song. And it's a cool song. And, not only that, but share this information with your friends on Facebook, and with your parents and your friends and people at church, because this is a golden opportunity to get information that you don't hear on the major mainstream media. This is like a breath of fresh air what you're doing here, and I appreciate it and I respect you for doing it.
Yeah, it's that's at libertarianprogressive.com, and it's also I create a YouTube place where you can see all the videos there as well at youtube.com/blast of fresh air. Instead of just breath, it's a whole blast of fresh air. And so that's what we can do is like occupy Congress, the legitimate way, just surround it and give it a blast of fresh air, and with our voices, and restore it. So, I mean, just get all the special interests out of there, and so I mean, so as far as civil liberties is a very important thing. I mean, did you know that one of the people that you're running against, who is a Republican, she voted for the NDAA. Her last name's Diane Black. I just looked up the NDAA voting record. Now, the NDAA itself, the National Defense Authorization Act, it's passed each year. By itself, it's just a spending bill. But as we all know in Congress, they attach like different things to it. And so one of the things they attached was to recognize this Congress, which Diane Black voted for, to give President Obama and any other presidents after him the rights to indefinitely detain American citizens, to break the Posse Comitatus Act, which has been around since the Civil War, where the military can police the streets, and also, not only be indefinitely detained, I mean indefinitely, without any reason or knowing that, evidence against them, no way to see a lawyer. I mean, just basically just plucked up. Just kind of like an alien abduction, basically, and never heard from possibly again. And who knows what would be done to them.
Like somebody like you.
Yeah, we allowed, we put in the laws to allow that. What's really free? So are we really free or not? It's not just the laws, but it's also are we free to do what we believe and live free? And so that's what I'm doing. I'm living free, and so I'm already free. I mean, no matter what happens, I'm free. And so I mean, that's the only. If you're not, then I would say you're already dead. And
really.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's so we free to not care what others think, and free to know all your options and explore those options. It would be better for us to stop these unnecessary wars. Fight them if you have to, like Theodore Roosevelt said, speak softly but carry a big stick. And he actually won the Nobel Peace Prize because he put together an agreement between, I think, Russia and Japan before World War I. Eventually went to World War I, but before that he actually prevented that. I mean, he was a peacemaker, and so I mean, there's
it's interesting that Ron Paul was lucky enough to break through somehow, some way, to be heard. I mean, he didn't lose a tire in his car and crash into a wall. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm here with you. Yeah,
and he fortunately made it to the national debates. And most people, although he doesn't look like Mitt Romney, and he's older, he still, and he's not as fluid of a speaker, he was able to get these ideas out. And he did create somewhat of a revolution, but it wasn't enough steam, evidently.
He did. I mean, he's great. He's a
so
hard worker. Yeah, he wakes up early in the morning. But the people also did it. It wasn't just him. It was the people that.
Yeah. The people. But he basically planted a seed in my mind, and now we have to tend the crop. Basically, we got to water the seeds, and we need to make sure that they're protected, and we need to work and nurture this philosophy, because obviously he's not going to be president. And so we need to keep this kind of spirit alive of Renaissance in a better way.
Yeah, he did
And
phase one, basically. I mean, he, like you said, started it. Now, I mean, there could be lots more like him once those all sprout up. I mean, we could have, hundreds of Ron Pauls. I mean, when you think about the early foundation, I mean, you think about people like George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Frederick Douglass. We have a lot of people like that nowadays. I mean, we probably have more per capita of people running. I mean, if you go to the Libertarian Party website, if you go to the Green Party websites, I mean, there's tons of candidates running nowadays. I mean,
yeah,
there's tons.
And you know what? And you know what? Even of Democrats and Republicans, I believe in my heart those are good people too, and they all have big, beautiful dreams as well, and they really want what's right, but the system is corrupt. The money has corrupted the machinery that cycles everything, that creates our civilization here in America and the world for that matter. And they're dealing with a dysfunctional system.
Oh, I don't argue that. I don't want to say like
they get sucked into the system, and they get corrupted, and they don't know any better, and they become sheeples instead of peoples, and they just follow like a herd, and they play the game. And they think it's like a football team or something. It's one side against the other, the Democrats against the Republicans, and they just constantly keep lining up at the line of scrimmage and keep plowing into each other, and they're not getting anywhere.
Now, she voted for the NDAA, and that's some serious stuff. We're talking about indefinite detention, and taking away our Bill of Rights. I mean, without even amending the Constitution, and they put us into trillions of dollars of debt to special interests. I mean, our troops are fighting side by side to contractors who are getting paid 10 times how much they're getting paid. And, they're selling us out to overseas banks. Our Federal Reserve is giving loans to over there, but and they'll bail out the banks, but I guess it's when the people are getting evicted from their houses. They could have just given the money to the people so the people could have paid the banks, but I guess they didn't want to do that. They'd rather just let everyone lose their houses so they can buy everything up for pennies on the dollar. I mean, people are afraid of losing their job. That's the thing. People are invested into the system. Like the media is invested into the system. Like if we don't have the Republicans and Democrats, the back and forth like hardball shows and stuff like that, we're going to go out of business. If we don't get the advertising from GE, which is totally
whatever. We could flush all that down the toilet like one big one, and not miss a beat, and the world would be a lot better.
95% of businesses would be for this. 95% of businesses would be better off if our dollar was more strengthened, if the consumers could spend better, if we were in a freer society, if we had the best minds wanting to come to the U.S. like they used to want to do. Now, people are trying to go to Canada and other places instead.
Yep.
And
we're cutting our own throats is what's going on. And as long as people don't stand up and be counted and start, voting for fresh new people instead of all these incumbents and all the same old business as usual crap, the same slogan, change. We're going to bring change. So vote Republican. We're going to, bring change and a better way. Vote Democratic. That is it. It ain't working. It hasn't worked. And we need some fresh blood, and we need independents, and we need Green Party people, and we need libertarians, and people that are not even affiliated with a party. And like you said, we need to get those numbers up in Congress, and start putting some pressure on the big wigs that are controlling the puppets in this country and in the world for that matter. And that's the big money.
Yeah, it takes some assertiveness, actually live life. This is a new frontier here in a sense, but a 21st century one. And like you said, we're so close to either way of going down in a spiral of destruction or, building on what we have and the things that we've learned, and being cool, calm, and collective, but also assertive at the same time.
Yep.
So I hope, you're an hour away from Nashville. I mean, I'm sure there's, that's a happening town. I'm sure there's people there that, want to support you and
Yeah.
totally want to get behind your campaign. I mean, because we're lucky to have people like you right now, and all the other people on the ballots that are giving us this choice. We don't have to just knee-jerkly, choose the lesser of two evils, especially at the, some people, go ahead and have your arguments about, I say here, I would like to see Gary Johnson elected too, but here's the arguments here, at least in the congressional ones, we don't have to do that there. We can actually have a House of Representatives that actually represents us. And Washington, like grew hemp. That's the kind of politicians that we had. We didn't have the type of politicians we do now that are like plastic Ken doll types that just are tape recorders, and are definitely puppets.
Totally, they are. They don't know it, but and they may know it too, that they're being bought, and people are just doing it for the money and for the prestige and for the parties that they get invited to, and I'm hanging out with this pretty person over here, and they're with the Republican Party, and you should see their house, it's so beautiful, and their family's so wonderful, and that stuff just, and people get sucked into all that little glitter and the dinner party and the cocktail party and
the bling,
and the bling, yeah. And
we're paying for a convention where we know, I guess at least the Democratic convention. Do we even have to have a convention there? It's you could argue the Republican one too, although that wasn't conducted under the laws of the convention with Ron Paul and stuff. They're taking us for granted. In other words, they
totally are. They're totally working. They're working the system, and they're winning.
They're seeing how much they can get away with. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they just shut down. They just threw away delegates from Maine, wasn't it, or Massachusetts?
It was Maine and Massachusetts, actually. Yeah.
That's a crime. Those guys should be. Those guys talk about the court system. Those guys should be on trial.
Yeah,
talk about all these other people smoking pot or something like that, and they put them in jail. And these guys are these guys are ripping off the whole country and blind.
Yeah, they're stealing people's vote. It's a vote that's just as valuable.
This should be a national travesty. This should be like on every news channel. This is against the dang law. This is not right. You don't hear about this.
We need to have people in Congress that are going to put up
stand up and say, like, enough is enough. We're blowing the horn here, folks. Where the bus is stopping, get off the bus. We got to see what happened here. This is not right.
And investigate
as long as they keep
things like that.
Oh, big time.
And bring the light
to that.
And
not some internal investigation either, because that's just a crock of bull. You need an independent one, and that needs to be verified. You know what I mean? Because
it's just more corporate welfare, basically.
Yeah. If the system investigates itself, what do you think they're going to find? They're going to come up with information that basically protects the operation. So this is like a boat. We're like a Titanic, and we're sinking. We're literally sinking. This country is on such thin ice, if you will, that it really is scary. And people know that. That's why gun sales have gone skyrocketing, and all the ammunition sales have gone way up. And people are nervous, and people. It's just very trying at times with a lot of people that are out of work, and they're stressing big time. They got health issues. They're worried about the future. They're worried about their mom and dad or their kids, and people need to share this information on their Facebook. Hopefully, if they care about America and they care about peace and love and family and the American dream, and let this word be known that there are options out there, and there are people that are fighting for a better way. And you're one of them, and I'm one of them, and our listeners might be on the team too with us, and working for a better way. And I appreciate all those people out there that are listening that are doing the hard work, and they're out on the front lines working for a better political system and a better country, better world.
It is going in that direction. There are people getting more involved. Hence the Tea Party, hence the Occupy Wall Street. The fruits of those types of things, those political actions, We have more nonprofit organizations. I mean, we have everything from like the ACLU and there's Judicial Watch and there's tons of different groups like that. Epic. I mean, we have a good foundation. It's like we don't need an overhaul. We have the system there. There are a lot of good people in governments. There are a lot of good people not in government. And there's a lot of good people here. We usually are a little slow to react because we're judicious and we're prudent. But at this point, I mean, now's the time to act. I mean, when there's
now
a 10%.
Is the time. I mean, how many more $1 trillion do we need to be in debt? I mean, how much more do we need to borrow? How many more wars do we need to fight?
This can end
now,
anytime.
We're just slicing our throat an inch at a time here, and we're going to kill ourselves. Really, the planet's going to be fine. It'll go on, but this human thing. I mean, we're on thin ice.
Okay, George Carlin had a very funny saying on that about the Earth being just fine. He was a
I know.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And if all those people out there haven't heard George Carlin talk about the environment and our place in it, you should listen to his work, because his work is masterful.
Yeah, the Earth's been around a long time. It survived the extinction of the dinosaurs. I mean, the Earth is going to be okay. But you know, I mean, hopefully now. I believe that it is going to happen, whether it's 2 years from now or this year. I think there's a real possibility. I mean, but I'm not going to predict the future or pretend to. But there are definitely signs that people are disgruntled. Hopefully, they see the solution as being a citizen participant and voting, because that's supposed to be our civic responsibility and our rights. Well, in closing here, Pat, I mean, it was a pleasure. I think people have a choice to choose someone who believes in the principles of the Constitution, who believes in our Constitution, who I think, I mean, you'll take your oath seriously. Is that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going like I'm going to war.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going there voluntarily.
They
take
their oaths too. Yeah.
I haven't been in the military, and this is basically like going in the military for me, because I'm going to fight.
Yeah, this
I'm
is
not going there. I'm not going there to sit there.
Right.
I'm not going to sit and go to cocktail parties and hang out and act like, wow, this is a big step up for me. This is not a step up for me. I'm living the life of Riley right now. I'm living the dream, but I want to give back, and I want to help make this world a better place. So I'm going in there to frickin' to make a splash, and I'm going to shine the spotlight on the corruption. And I'm going to cut all the big spending, like Gary Johnson. Is that his name, from New Mexico?
Yeah, Gary Johnson.
Yeah, like he said, he voted no on like 1,000 different bills that came across his desk.
Yes.
And everything was fine. And nothing went south. The economy didn't crash there, and everything was fine. And that's
he
the
was
way I'm
elected as a two-term governor, and he stepped down because he believed in term limits. He probably could have been elected again. I think that's the way the story went. But he was reelected twice in a row in an overly Democratic state, and he was a Republican, and now he's a Libertarian presidential candidate.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's totally awesome. I wish him well, and I thank him for his service. Of course, Ron Paul, but I'm not into this for getting rich. I'm not into it because I'm looking for, power or prestige or, I'd be lying to say I want people to hear my music, and maybe someday this will help me help people connect with my music. But it goes way beyond that. I'm doing this for peace, world peace. I'm doing this for love, so people, for the future of America and the future of the planet, that we have a better chance at succeeding, and everybody being healthy and happy, and so people can dance and sing and write music and poetry and eat healthy food and just be
like
in
a renaissance again.
Yeah, like a total renaissance. Just sit there and chill and like Bob Dylan, chilling like Bob Dylan, man. Just relaxing and enjoying nature and the flowers and the ocean and just all the bounty that we have here on Earth. It's just like heaven on earth as far as I can see.
Yes.
except for all the corruption. And we just have to go after that, and that's what I plan to do.
Yeah, I mean, just being able to go out in the woods and not have some EPA regulator telling you can't do this or that, or just being able to build land on your property and not have to have permits for everything. I mean, I guess there should be some reasonable regulations, but
Sure.
but but being free. I mean, I think we've lost that sense of what it's like to just be able to just. I mean, we should be. I mean, now of course we want to have police and stuff to protect our rights, but not to.
Yeah.
But we also need them to be professional and all of that. But
Sure.
but the sense of just being able to drive out into nowhere, being left alone, and just be free out there in nature. I mean, when was a lot? A lot of. I mean, that's just being totally free on this in our lives, and just being able to do that. I mean, it's
totally awesome. It's totally awesome, and I hope someday it's not against the law.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And at the rate we're going, if the system has its way, it might be someday. So people better sober up and smell the coffee and start digging into the information and learn about Ron Paul, for example. Watch his videos.
Being out in the
Go to
woods.
his website at ronpaul.com. It's been sitting, my computer's on my lap right now, and it has been ever since we started. And it's basically Ron Paul's website. And if I need to start talking about the issues, I just click on the issues, and there they all are. And
well, one thing he said
and people can do this, and they can study what he's basically saying, and other like mine, and it's all right there. And if you don't understand after that, then I don't know what to say. But this is the path that's going to lead us to a brighter future and a more heavenly experience on Earth.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good way to explain your platform there, and I think you explained it here as well. And Ron Paul said, like, new laws passed should increase freedom rather than restrict it. So any new laws should be towards the purpose of extending freedom. So when we think about passing laws, like, does this law increase freedoms, or does it restrict them? And as he's for a strong defense, but he separates the term defense compared to military spending, and so did David Eisenhower, and no one would say he was soft on anything. I mean, the civil liberties is a foundation, and I mean, we need people like that in Congress that are going to champion. I mean, so we're talking about Congress here. And that's where the money's spent, that's where the laws are passed, and that's where people get together, debate, have dialogue, and that's where committees go, and there's investigations and stuff. And well, I guess that's so yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's I appreciate your time, Pat. Is there anything else I didn't bring up that you would like to that bring up at this time? If not, it's been truly great talking with you. And so people in Tennessee, I know Tennessee. I've been there like twice, and it's but I think people are pretty much have the same aspirations everywhere. But I mean, I know people in Tennessee though, have the true American spirit of the Declaration of Independence, and I mean, I don't see, I see you as representing that, and I don't see why
Absolutely.
someone wouldn't want to
I'm on the listeners' team. If they're listening from Tennessee, or elsewhere, I'm on your team. If you're about wanting peace in the world, I'm on your team. If you're about loving your family and your friends and your animals and nature, I'm on your team. And if you're about getting the spending in our government under control, I'm on your team. If you're about freedom of religion and you practicing your religion, or me, how we see fit, I'm on your team. I'm a fan of yours. Go ahead and do what you want. If you want to start a business, I'm on your team. What more is there to really talk about? Immigration, we could talk about all these things, but I'm on the team. I'm just shooting for the bullseye, the top rung on the ladder. I'm not sitting here just going for the middle or the status quo like where everybody else is at. I'm going for the top.
Yeah, and I mean, this is and people can help propel you there, and then they're actually propelling themselves there, because
Absolutely. A vote for me is a vote for them.
that's right. And keeping you out of the debates is keeping them out of the debates, and people need to, press the newspapers and the media to interview you. I don't know if there's any community radio stations there. I mean, people belong to Ron Paul meetup groups, need to have some town halls, have some speeches, record that, put that on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's anybody listening that's connected to the Ron Paul group or contingency here in Nashville, by all means, definitely go to my page, PatRileyForCongress.com, and my Facebook and all of that, and connect with me. And if you have connections to other people that do interviews, festivals, any kind of major news outlets or whatever, radio stations, I'm there. I'll go. And thanks to you, you boosted my confidence.
Well, and this is a bipartisan people are talking about. I mean, it's like people are saying we need more bipartisanship, but not the kind we get from Republicans and Democrats. That kind, we get Medicare prescription bill acts where they can't negotiate the prices, where we get, it seems like, record-long wars, contracts, bailouts, trampling on our civil liberties. But the true bipartisanship is a Green Party candidate who is running on Ron Paul's record. Now, that's the type of bipartisanship that we need a little bit more of. So, again, this is Thomas Keegan with the LibertarianProgressive.com. Pat, I'll say goodbye to you right after the interview. It's been great talking with you, and I hope to see you. I hope to see that you're in the Congress on November 7th. That would be excellent.
That would be excellent.
All right, sir. Thanks very much.
Thank you.